somebody say something.
Something.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep, you're live.
Okay, good evening. This time, we're gonna call the Edgefield County Planning Commission work session agenda to order for January the 8th, 2026. This time we'll call the order. Guest speaker, old business staff update reports.
Okay, it's in front of you, the plat reviews, we had 3 of them, the zip plat, 2 minor subdivisions, 5. We had 0 major subdivisions come through, and we had 1 combined plat that came through. The preferred tree list, you have that in front of you. The edits that were discussed when y'all voted to push this through to council are highlighted. I mean, they were generated, the edits were generated via your concerns about the trees that were on there. So those edits were made, so it made more sense for our area. And the tree preservation ordinance itself, I could email it to you. I printed it out. I think I left it on the table over there. I apologize. It had like 2 edits. The only significant, other than a wording edit, was that we included a top 4 buffer for all the way around it, except for if it's facing a road corridor, it would be a type 5 buffer along any
So
corridor.
we increased the buffer requirement if it's on a corridor.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have. And this will go before council February.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, now then, can I move on?
I have a question for David. Didn't I hear you say at the county council meeting that you were also looking at, like, the list changed for trees that should not be brought to the area that may be invasive, and then
That's
Did
right.
you
Those
review that
edits have
too?
been made as well. I'm an arborist myself. I went through the list. Roy Kibler, North Augusta arborist. We sat down with him. He struck some trees, added a couple, I believe. And Clemson Extension, Stephen Pullman, who's an arborist locally, he took the list and sent it up the chain and back down. And there were a couple of things that Clemson is adding to a do not plant list. We struck those.
okay.
So it's been vetted pretty well now, this particular version.
That's good.
I'm pretty comfortable with it. We added more natives, took
good.
some of the non-natives out. For landscaping purposes, if let's say a shopping center wants to put a tree in an island or something, sometimes it's appropriate for the non-natives. I would anticipate that most of the natives would be put in the buffers. And I would imagine that if I was a developer, it costs a lot of money to buy 2.5-inch caliper trees and water them and care for them. I would preserve the existing vegetation to the best of my ability and just infill gaps with these trees. So I'm pretty comfortable with the list, especially that we have so many native species on there.
Okay. That's great, because I'd like to see what was naturally growing here preserved.
Right,
you know,
right.
and then replanted with the things that are found here naturally rather than bringing in.
I agree.
Foreign
I
species
agree.
is
We
gonna
lean
change our
heavily
look.
into that. I mean, you have to give people options, and unfortunately, some of the nurseries grow hybrid stock, and some of the stock's considered non-native. You don't have a lot of nurseries growing 2.5-inch caliper white oaks and things like that. Unfortunately, you just don't. But I think that market's growing, and with counties doing things like this and pushing the native trees, I think it'll grow more. That's what we should do.
Yeah, that's what I was
But
thinking.
this tree preservation ordinance is,
It does mention that in there. Well, you know,
It
we
does.
prefer that you maintain what's there, and then like you said,
right.
fill in the gaps.
That's right, that's right. It's very expensive to buy, for example, to do a buffer and buy a couple of hundred 2.5-inch caliper trees, even ball and burlap, that's very expensive. So I
Very, very
really,
expensive when you consider that the ordinance requires a 30% canopy.
that's right.
You're talking $40,000. If you were to
Anything they
plant
can
it.
preserve. That's one of the first things that they'll ask when they call us, you know, can we use existing for buffer? Absolutely,
Absolutely.
we want you to use it, what's there, we don't want you to knock anything down, cut anything down, and put up new stuff.
Now, in with that and I was discussing this with April and Doc, there is a need to increase inspections around this because root preservation of existing trees is very important.
Mhm.
They have to warranty these, right,
Mhm.
for a year?
Mhm.
So, I do think developers will lean heavily towards maintaining what's out there. And of course, we'll have tree surveys, we'll have a plan sheet that tells us what's out there. So, you know, it's not that in the dead of night, you can go in and remove something
Mhm.
because they'll have to send us a survey. This is a very stringent tree preservation ordinance, I'll tell you that.
And if they clear cut it before they do the survey, then it locks them down for 5 years and they can't develop it at all.
Mhm.
I think that the intention behind that, that was something Jerry Moody had suggested to me.
Well,
Because-
it's an old trick of developers to get the previous owner
Yeah,
to
that's
clear
why-
cut it, and then when they buy it, oh, well, it was already clear before I bought it.
Yeah,
That's why we,
So that's in there to stop that.
right. That's what it was, to
Mhm.
stop someone saying, oh, I just harvested the timber.
Yeah.
You know,
And well, we
now I'm
don't, you
gonna-
know,
now I'm gonna
timber's not a
develop it.
protected tree, but if you go in there and you got, you know, heartwood pine and you got oak trees and you got maple trees, et cetera, those are significant trees that you have to keep. Now, if you're just clearing a timber tract, well, that's a whole separate issue, and you won't have any choice but to plant trees, because we ain't gonna let you keep the pine trees anyway.
Except in
Unless it's
the
a
buffer.
native, unless it's a native pine,
You can maintain that in the buffer.
in the buffer,
Yeah.
you're right.
But we're not stopping the timber crops. The
Correct.
people that are growing for timber crops.
None of us are that brave.
No, we don't wanna
not
do
extra
that.
now.
Well, I mean,
That's the biggest crop in Edgefield County.
if you want
We're not-
toilet paper and paper to
Yeah.
write on and print, you need to grow pine
We
trees,
we
so.
got about 28,000 acres of timber pine.
Right,
Mhm.
so that's not stopping them from
No,
harvesting timber. It's
absolutely
just,
not.
if they harvest the timber and then developer comes in, wants to buy it,
It's
it's
specific to
clear
that
cut.
ordinance, and the ordinance is for commercial and major subdivisions.
right.
It would behoove a developer to, when he looks at a land, just go ahead and do a tree survey up front before he even makes any determination, because even if the lot doesn't meet that 30% canopy, he's gonna have to meet that. So, if he buys a field, he's got to know up front that I'm gonna have to plant this to get 30% canopy. So, it behooves them to do that up front anyway.
We'll need to have meetings with the developers and get that across,
Yeah,
because it could be a
And
very
I think a
costly
lot of-
mistake.
Developers are, I mean, we're not the first people to do it. We might be a little stricter than a lot of them, but we're definitely not the first jurisdiction they've been to that requires a tree survey or has a tree preservation ordinance.
I think the only thing that they'll come up with would be, how can you prove that this was not pasture for the past?
I don't give a damn if it was 30%.
So,
Right.
you know, that,
well, that's like Tavern Hill, it's being built in a former pasture
Field.
for hay.
And under, once this is passed,
they'll have to plant
30% of it, you're gonna have to
30%.
come back and plant it. Just cause it was a field don't mean anything. You're gonna have to
Right.
plant it.
And that's not in that doesn't include the lot trees.
Now, of course, they are planting trees in there, and I'm going to ask council to change phase 2 and 3 to take street trees out and just put more subdivision trees and green space and stuff like that. Street trees are the devil, we don't want that. I hate that some of that is already in some places, but that turns into a nightmare for the county. And it tears the road to sidewalks to pieces. It's just bad. But green spaces, no reason you can't just fill green spaces and, areas that aren't technically green spaces, but are common areas, like around a retention pond and stuff you don't want to see anyway. Plant trees.
Well, I mean, I would encourage trees, if they wanna plant them, don't plant them at the street, cause it messes up the sidewalks and the asphalt
Right.
as the tree grows.
But-
But there needs to be trees in the yard, shade for those homes
So
somewhere.
we do have a requirement in there for trees in the yards. However, they do not count towards your 30% canopy for your subdivision. And the reason for that is when the private owner comes and buys the lot, they could choose to come in and cut down every tree off their lot, and there's nothing we can do about it. But we can only put those regulatory burdens on the developer. So that 30% is gonna be your green spaces, your buffer spaces, your, retention spaces, wherever, you have a common space, that's where you're gonna get your 30%. And then the canopy, the planting requirements for each lot, I can't remember what it was it 2 in the backyard, 1 in the front, something?
It was
Or
1 per
one per
5,000 square feet of lot.
Yeah, something like that. We're gonna require them to be planted, but like I said, the homeowner could buy the lot and then come in and chop them down and, well, that's that,
They
so.
can, but I have sold in neighborhoods where the HOA restrictions, you have to go to the HOA board to get permission to cut a tree down in your yard, which I think is ridiculous, but there are some HOA restrictions where you can't cut down a tree in your yard. I mean,
Yeah,
so if
and
the developer
some of
wanted to
those
do that, they
developers
could.
may choose to go that route, but I would rather just count my 30%, not including those.
Yeah,
Right, because then it's just gravy, right? It's extra.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So whatever remains is great and
So,
makes subdivision.
I mean, from staff's point of view, we wrote this because we don't want to take a satellite picture and see Governor's Landing. That's what we're trying to avoid, to where it just,
No trees.
they didn't really mass grade, but they cut everything as far as the eye can see. And it's just, I mean, if you're standing at the road, you can see the houses at the very back of the subdivision. That's what we don't want. Yeah, have some mystery.
When if a developer comes and it's something that the
Have a
county
little
likes,
mystery in there.
they can always do a
Little
cluster
shade.
development, but then preserve everything else around it. And then you've got all the acreage that's not developed, that's permanently just forested area.
it's not permanent. We've already had that discussion. We can't make it permanent. We
Depending.
cannot make green space permanent. I've asked you that in the meeting before.
If
So,
it's
I
a
mean-
part, they would have to come before planning commission before they could ever develop
Or
Right,
any of
that doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's permanent. Because that planning commission and county council can change their mind saying, yeah, we
Yeah,
we
well,
need more houses.
as
we need
permanent,
development."
as permanent as any current regulatory body can make it. I mean, obviously, you can't say, 30 years from the future, the council at that time is gonna change all the regulations. I mean, everything we do, they can throw in the trash 30 years from now, but, it's, without coming back through the whole
All
process,
lost.
it is what it is. It's locked in.
Knock it back to you, Fab.
I'm flying right now. I guess I'm. Now, I just listened to you, cause things change, I mean, nothing gonna be forever.
Nope.
So it just made the change, so, but anyway, so we done, well, we on our discussion now, right?
Yeah.
We
Well-
on-
New business.
Yeah, we're on
I thought we was on that, regular data and cryptic mining.
Yeah.
so now we're going to data centers.
Oh, okay.
And the whole reason that we've been talking for quite a while now, and emailing back and forth about the different situations as far as data centers and things like that. And I had at first talked to you, I believe, about doing a moratorium, and then after, it seemed like Monday or Tuesday, everything came to a head and everybody's talking about data centers, and I thought, well, I have all the paperwork here that we've discussed. But, it didn't seem that they were, you know, that possibly we don't need a moratorium. Some facts, we don't have the water, we don't have the electricity, we don't even have electricity and the water to even start one, which is good in one way and not in others, but, I had done quite a bit of research on zoning considerations regarding the data centers, and we have to include crypto mining, because if you don't, it's just another hole that you're gonna step in trying to prevent something else. But, the biggest eye opener that I came across was the legal firm who works for the data centers and the crypto companies. And they find workarounds and walkarounds for zoning. So I watched a few of their webinars, I watched a few of their sneaky little practices and incorporated those with everything that I'd sent you. And so, I mean, everything in the proposed draft
Yeah,
was good. As far as it has everything in there. The only difference was the, upon decommission, they have to have approval either by DES or any other regulatory commission that's applicable. And that's to kind of,
Provide it to the county.
right, and it has to be someone who is, and I guess DES would be who it would be. However, they have to be
Yeah, it was
knowledgeable.
Okay, well, so April put together a significant packet of
Yes.
proposals for an ordinance. And I went through it and streamlined it and neatened it up and just made a very basic, clean line version of it. So I'll go through them real quick. I started off just by defining everything. Since this is not a common thing in most ordinances yet, I just went ahead and set definitions in there. And then I went straight from there into permitted locations. The very first thing would be, in my mind, if we want to limit it, just say, it's industrial zoning only. You don't get to put it in commercial areas, you don't get to put it in,
Right.
Residential areas. And if you look at A1, it says data centers shall be permitted in industrial zoned areas and shall be specifically forbidden in unzoned portions of the unincorporated areas of the county. Because as you know, 50% of the county has no zoning at all, which has no use regulations. So this would prevent that from, somebody picking a old farm out in the middle of nowhere and decide to try and put a data center on it. They could still, of course, come before you and request a change of zoning to industrial, but you have no obligation to grant or deny that. You can do that as you see fit. So by making it industrial, it will either require them to be located in the industrial park or require them to ask for you to rezone something, one way or the other. A lot of the data that we picked up said, not permitted within 1,000 feet of residential zoning. I changed that and put no data center shall be permitted within 1,000 feet of a single or multifamily residence. The reason I did that is our non-residential zoning districts allow for residential. So you can build a house in a commercial district in Edgefield County. We don't prevent it. Limited commercial, general commercial, rural agriculture, rural residential, they all allow for residential, single-family residential buildings at least. So in my mind, you could then have a house next to a piece of property that's zoned commercial, but has a house, and then Meta could, or no, I shouldn't say Meta specifically, but a data center could come in and build next to that house, and because it's not a residential zoning, there would be nothing you could do. So I just changed it to, if there is a residence within 1,000 feet, it's a no.
Oh, Doc,
Mhm.
in the research I've done and people I've talked to, because it's not so much the noise, but it's the vibration that people can feel in their homes from those data centers. People have been affected as much as 2 miles from those data centers.
Yeah, well, we
So-
can't, we can't set it to 2 miles.
I know,
though.
but I'm saying, I don't know if 1,000's enough, or is there something else in the ordinance where they have to put up some type of wall, not just a vegetative buffer, but some type of wall that's going to,
There's screening, fencing, and,
Yeah, we have some requirements.
yes.
well,
So-
I'm asking, so that's in there where there's like a solid wall that's gonna stop that vibration from, if there's a home 1,002 feet away.
Right.
Is that gonna stop that resident from from hearing the noise and feeling the vibration? So what type of screening are you looking at, like a
So we
good
have
solid wall?
landscape buffers, we have transitional buffers, and then for areas of electrical production or generation, we have wall requirements as well.
Yeah, we got any in the county now?
So
No.
if you
No,
are,
no.
you are, any of your electrical, mechanical, et cetera, equipment, has to have an 8-foot tall wall from the adjoining property, or any accessible street. So yeah, it's gotta have an 8-foot wall around your electrical equipment. Now, that's not the whole facility, that's not the whole building.
Right,
But it's
so
the
Now, the whole
facility.
now the
it's
whole
the
facility and the
processing
whole.
of the servers that are causing the vibration.
It's EMFs, and that's why they have such a 2-mile radius that you have, because EMF doesn't go 2 miles. You know, that's what it's to buffer from. That's why I said in here, address noise, heat, and EMFs. So that's.
We'll make them build it as a Faraday cage. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that would be good.
It won't be farther than 2 miles.
I don't think it
well,
will,
we-
but.
I
Well,
think
but
we need to
that's
have
the
a
thing.
wall around the facility, or either walls built in such a way where
I don't think
those
walls will
cannot-
stop EMF though.
or what the vibrations from the servers
That's
too, yeah.
EMFs.
In
Yeah,
the ordinance
so-
from DeKalb, I think there was some kind of mission, a section that indicated that they had something to have a buffer or a wall that absorbed,
Mm-hmm.
and I can let you
Yeah,
look
we
at
can
that.
look at it.
Yeah, I think if they've developed something like that, then I think we should
And I
require it.
can't remember. I'm pretty sure it's in there.
But we'll go through these, and this is a base. So what I really want you to do is just take this home and scribble on it and add and subtract, and, you know, if you have questions or concerns, highlight those, and then bring it back. But I'll continue through, some of these other requirements. I already talked about the transitional buffer. Distance has to be measured from buildings, substations, drives, streets, parking lots, structures, or improvements. So anything they build is got to be outside of that transitional buffer. Architectural and landscaping design requirements. Where visible from a publicly accessible road or right of way, a medium, major, or campus data center shall have a minimum of 30% of the width of the front facade of any building at the ground level consist of fenestration such as decorative windows, architecturally glazed windows, and painted and applied decorative murals shall be permitted to count towards fenestration requirements, but only after 10% of actual fenestration has been met. And then I put a little definition of mural just so it was clear that you can't put a big old advertisement on the side of the building and call that, you know. Right. A minimum of 10% of the width of side and rear facade shall incorporate decorative windows or architecturally glazed windows. And the following materials shall not be utilized on the building facade: aluminum siding, corrugated steel, vinyl siding, plywood, pressed wood products, synthetic stucco, or unfinished concrete block. So don't make a big ugly building. All data centers shall have unified landscape and architectural elements. Operation requirements, substations, electrical yards, mechanical yards, and any other exposed equipment shall not be located between the building and a publicly accessible road or right-of-way and shall be screened from any adjacent publicly accessible street, private street, trail, or park. All lighting other than the street and pedestrian scale lighting shall have a dark sky design. There shall be no spillover from fixtures on the surrounding properties, including the streets. All lights and poles shall have a permanent black finish. All cooling and ventilation equipment within property boundaries shall operate on a closed-loop system. This is extremely important. We produce 2 to 3 million gallons of water a day in total for Edgefield County. Without a closed-loop system, a data center
That's
can
right.
use that by themselves in a day. So that's one of the reasons why we're not terribly concerned about data centers right this minute, because we couldn't supply them what they want anyway. But closed loop system prevents a lot of wasted water, a lot of wasted water.
Well, that and, that water picks up toxins. And we don't want that flushed into our environment. So do you have anything in here about,
A recycle center for the water that is trashed it was in there, is it not?
Okay, so later on in there is some discussion about anything that has to be recycled
Yes.
and what you have to do with it. And there's also a section that I added
Decommissioning?
after, before any approval from Edgefield County, all environmental approvals from the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services will have to be submitted to us. So
Is
they will
that
have to
gonna
have
include?
all those plans and in all of their other things, like specifically like generator requirements. They can't make up power with generators.
Good Lord,
So they can't just, they require obscene amounts of electricity sometimes. And in some places, they literally run generators all the time to produce extra power. Well, that's not allowed. This will prevent them to only use generators for emergency electrical supply. And the only thing that's allowed is testing, and I'll get into that in a second.
On the when you said the appropriate approvals, does that include the acoustical study as well?
So that's a separate thing, but I'll
Okay,
go
good.
into that in just a second. Because that's not a DES thing, so I had to
No,
write
okay.
that separately.
I-
Cooling, ventilation, and other external equipment used and operated by the facility shall not be located between building and public access right-of-ways unless located on rooftop of any data center development or building within the property boundaries. Substations associated with the operation of data centers shall be subject to the following requirements. Shall be 50 feet from any public right-of-way. Substation shall be screened with a minimum 8-foot tall wall from any adjoining property or publicly accessible street. Substation shall not involve the storage of any vehicle or service equipment. Generator maintenance requirements. Any generator on the property shall comply with at least Tier 4 EPA emission standards. Testing of these generators shall not exceed 10 hours per month. Testing for these generators shall not occur between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5. Shall only occur between the hours of 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Generators shall be enclosed by sound attenuation for noise reduction and to reduce pollution. Except for generator testing or commissioning activities, generator use is limited to backup and emergency use only. All applicants for a data center, in addition to any other application requirements of this code, must provide the following information. Applicants shall provide a letter of intent from the relevant utility provider confirming that preliminary coordination has occurred and that service to the proposed facility is technically feasible, subject to final engineering review. A noise impact assessment shall be required as part of the permitting process for any proposed data center development and assessed at a distance of 500 feet from the data center development. The noise impact assessment shall define the scope of the assessment, including the geographic area, the noise sources of the study, and the subject and the specific objectives of the assessment for the proposed development. Measured pre-operation ambient noise or the existing background noise before any server equipment is installed, and provide acoustic mitigation strategies if noise level is proposed to exceed 60 decibels during any hour of the day or night once equipment for the data center development is in operation. And this has to come before the final approval. So this is part of the application process for the final approval. Water consumption and sustainability plan. A water consumption and sustainability plan shall address conservation and scarcity, outlining the total water requirements of the data center, including cooling needs, and any strategies to reduce or mitigate excessive water usage. The plan shall demonstrate the water usage shall not significantly strain the county's water supply. Energy consumption and sustainability plan. An energy consumption sustainability plan shall contain the estimated energy load before construction and the daily operation load once constructed. This assessment shall outline estimates of peak electricity demands and strategies for mitigating strain on the local power infrastructure. Proposed improvements are alternatives to minimize the need for additional transmission lines and the designated power provider. The use of sustainable alternatives for on-site water or power generation, such as solar panels, rooftop cisterns, small-scale wind turbines, or other renewable energy sources, which shall offset at least 10% of total power and water usage. A decommissioning
Wait,
plan.
stop. I just wanna make sure. Are you saying they are required to
Yes.
use?
Yes.
And it has to provide at least 10%?
Correct.
Okay. Because some of the studies I've read are saying that those types of, the renewable energy sources, it looks like they can't get any more than 1 to 2% needed power.
Sounds like a problem for them.
So it is, so that could prevent, okay. I mean, I'm in
Put in a
agreement with
nuclear
that.
battery if they want to, but.
Well, they may. SRS talking about putting in their own nuclear power plant out there, so.
They probably need it. I mean, we can,
Okay.
like I said,
I'm happy with that 10%, cause I think that might be unattainable for them, but that's fine with me.
you know, I think it depends on their size. You know,
Mhm.
when you say data center, everybody thinks, ginormous 250,000 square foot facility running, 7.5 megawatts worth of servers, but that's not necessarily the case. Data centers can be 5,000 square feet. They can be the size of a county building, and still have huge electrical and water needs, and not be, but not be 7 megawatts, you know what I mean? So, I think it addresses, large scale and small scale. And we can finagle the numbers, and I'm sure county council will want to finagle numbers. I'm sure that they're gonna send this to Will Williams right off the get-go, and he's gonna make a lot of recommendations to the council. So,
But this covers
This-
basically tier 1 through tier 4.
yes, well, this
Centers,
is, like I said, this is where I think is a starting point for something that's basic protections that are not gonna get us in trouble with the state, they're not gonna get us in trouble with the feds, and they do prevent, some big tract of land out in the middle of nowhere getting bought up and turned into a data center.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's the fear, and I think that's the goal. So, a decommissioning plan in the event the data infrastructure is not sold or transferred for recycling of all on-site electronic infrastructure through certified recyclers that follow responsible recycling R2 standard for electronic recyclers and e-stewards. I just lost completely where I was.
E.
Transmission line impact assessment. So, and this is the primary reason why we don't really have to be in a hurry. We have 2 transfer lines in the county. We have a Dominion one that serves our industrial park, which could not power half of a small data center. And then we have the Santee Cooper line in the north side of the county, which, what is that one, 5 megawatts at the most? Yeah, so we don't have a whole lot of major power infrastructure in the county. Now, that's not saying, a company the size of Amazon can't come in and make new lines or build new power plants or do all sorts of other things. If you got $190 billion, I'm pretty sure you can afford to change out some power lines.
The decommissioning, the one you just read prior to that, that's what she was mentioning earlier, that once they do that and they gain approval for the decommissioning and they've done it properly, they have to give us some kind of, copies of where it's done
Yeah,
up to
all of their
DES
electronics and-
standards or whoever standards that they have.
Or any
Right.
regulatory
Well,
commission.
yeah.
I mean, if they
I-
quit using the facility,
Correct.
right, they have to
And they
clean
have,
it up.
that way we have that in our records that, they decommissioned it, it was done correctly, and we have a copy of whoever
From
certified.
every regulatory
did it
agency
correctly.
that's necessary.
But regardless of our current transmission line size, I did put in there, transmission line impact assessment shall identify the need for new or upgraded transmission lines to meet the data center's electricity requirements. The assessment shall include the potential environmental impact on public land, including tree removal from county-owned land and rights-of-way. The plan shall also include information on the planned substation locations, shall show the screening mechanisms, which shall include a minimum of 8-foot tall decorative brick wall if potentially visible by the public. Before final approval, Edgefield County, all stormwater and environmental approvals from the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services will be submitted to the planning director. Any additional information requested by Edgefield County's planning department shall be submitted before the application is deemed completed. The owner and operator is required to submit an annual compliance report that details any changes to and continuation of all assessments submitted with an application demonstrating compliance and monitoring of all application requirements and conditions of zoning to the county planning director no later than the 1st of January of each year, and the burden of showing compliance with supplemental regulations and/or conditions of zoning is on the applicant and the owner of the property or use. So this is the start. This is the basic roadmap. It has, I don't think that the state would consider this to be too restrictive. I think that they would probably consider that everything in there is technically feasible. If we find out different, then we can address that.
But it
If there are
doesn't
things that you
fall.
want to add, subtract, change, write that out. But I think it gives us, a starting point.
Okay.
And I'll be honest with you, I wrote this with some basic knowledge and about 45 minutes of reviewing her research into data centers. So there's probably a lot more to it than, my
Well-
understanding, which is why I'm saying, this is a base.
But it falls within I went from Georgia, Virginia, and South Carolina, what is right here, right now, and went through quite a few of their ordinances as well. And it covers pretty much everything that you've covered. But I will say, if you don't have crypto mining, set aside, and you've got to do that, because that's one of the ways that they do.
So
Get around.
do you want me to just
I would like for it
add
to
that
say,
as a definition?
I want it to be proposed data center
Slash
/
crypto mining?
crypto mining. Because it's gonna be the same type operation and have the same requirements.
So the other, problem that I see people that already have these data centers in their communities are the rate increases on electricity, and I know that's the utility company thing.
Mhm.
So for us to work out any type of a deal between the data center and whoever's providing electricity in our other area, whether it's Dominion or Aiken Electric, can we on a county level do anything about, you're gonna charge it to the data center, you're not gonna charge it to our residents, increasing their rates for electricity, just because now they're sucking up more electricity. You're not gonna increase the rates on the residents, or is that a state level?
That go to the public commission, won't it?
Yeah, that goes to public service.
Public safety commission.
That's Public Service Commission, because I think Georgia's looking, I think they're looking at that right now.
I mean,
However,
we can ask Scott
the-
Daly to send us some information on that.
The completely absurd thing is Georgia is inviting data centers to come. They are putting out advertisements and everything else. One of their planning persons, I watched him just the other day on a webinar. He says, if you have a data center and you need it operational, bring it to Georgia. We'll welcome you. Which is I mean, I was floored.
Well, that's good for us.
That's
You don't
good for
want data
us.
centers.
I know.
Go where they're
But
welcome.
it was
Yeah.
just, but now, on the other hand, Virginia, Loudoun County was one of the first places to get a data center.
I'm sure Georgia would love to move Silicon Valley to Georgia.
I'm sure they would.
Well, they're trying to move Hollywood there
Yeah,
already, so.
I mean.
But
who
Loudoun
wouldn't- who wouldn't
County
want a
is
few
having
$1 trillion
trouble
of revenue?
right now. And people are having problem with aquifers and things like that.
Mhm.
But, you know, they were the first ones to jump on board and say, oh, bring them here. Okay, you got it.
Well, and
So-
I
That could be a
listened,
part of that, their energy consumption, and sustainability, Lord, I can even talk, sustainability plan.
mhm.
And we can fit that in there.
Yeah, I don't, yeah, I mean, anything we can do on the county level to prevent our
But with
residents
that-
from
I
seeing
think all we
rate
can really
increases.
say is, give us a study on the anticipated impact. I don't think on the state level, we can require Dominion or the developer to do anything in regards to rates. I mean, we can ask for a study saying, hey, how big of an impact do you think it'll have on
And
the
that's-
local level?
That's what this asks, but is
Yeah.
there anything that Dominion, there's no guarantee that,
But I think the Georgia
They're trying to raise
legislature's taking up
they're
something.
trying to raise the rate 12%.
They're doing it
now.
right now.
Yeah, I think the Georgia legislature's stepping in and they're proposing something about, because I think in Georgia they don't have a commission like we do. I think in Georgia it's the legislators that control the utilities. But I think they're looking at something about,
And I'm pretty
Um,
sure Aiken Co-op just raised rates.
and their plan is supposed to show us where they can mitigate the strain that it causes. So I don't know to what degree, if we should, if we can require them.
we probably need to start putting pressure on the utility commission about making sure that, get it done statewide. Because I don't know how much power we have as a county to prevent those rate increases for our residents if a data center moves in here. Because it shouldn't be a strain on our citizens because we've allowed a data center in here and now their housing costs have gone up because they're paying higher electrical rates.
Like I said, I'm sure that we can require the study, but I'll talk to Scott, and see how the state level commission functions on that. He's the government rep for Dominion Energy, so he'll have he deals with them, so he'll probably be able to tell us, what the regulations on the state level are for that.
And then I got to listen to, I think it's Colleton County. They have a proposed data center. And their I don't know if it was a workshop like this or a public hearing or whatever, but they're complaining because they told their economic development authority that they were bringing so many jobs in, but it was really just construction workers. And then once it was built, it wasn't the jobs that they were
Right.
promised.
No.
Yeah, the main,
They,
it's
they,
like,
Right,
they
and-
have very,
but
very
very
few.
The
few
data
workers.
center company made it sound like they were gonna be permanent
Yeah.
jobs.
Yeah.
they're
And
not.
so now you're gonna have people earning higher incomes, building houses. It's gonna be a tax benefit for the county, and that's
Well,
not true.
I'm
So,
sure their 10 employees get paid good.
yeah.
yeah.
They said
So-
the most employees at a data center that was in the records for 24, 25 was 30. And that was on the high side.
That's the mega sites, but I think like the one in,
It's
Bettis
10, like
Academy is gonna
10.
be like 10 to 12.
And I would say that's probably pretty typical. I mean, you need a security guard, a janitor, and you need a couple of people to take care of the machines. But they
Turn the water.
run
They run
themselves,
themselves.
and the people who manipulate the data in the machines, well, they're working from anywhere in the world. They don't need to be there on site to do that. They could be in an office building in California and tell it to do something from there, and it'll do it. So, from a revenue standpoint, they're not a bad thing. Those buildings are extremely valuable. Was the Aiken one $368 million? something like that. So, I mean, from a revenue standpoint, they're great, but they use, from my perspective, their power usage is just, it's,
Phenomenal.
right, I mean, if they keep building them even as they are now, we're gonna have rolling blackouts. I don't see how you keep building things of that size without building power plants.
And not to mention, I mean, you look at, was it 17 trillion gallons of water globally just for the data centers that are online right now? 17 trillion gallons. There's 345 trillion gallons of water on the planet right now. How long is that going to sustain? So,
Well, I know we don't.
15.
Edgefield County will never
no,
provide water for a non-closed loop system.
no.
The bigger ones take 3 million gallons a day. Well, that's our whole production.
They use that much water.
Yeah.
15. It's
So they have to cool all that
They don't
equipment.
cool the equipment down. It's evaporative cooling.
Yeah,
And now
have
they make
cooling
them
towers.
capture the evaporation, and then they turn that
Recirculate.
back into
It
water.
reduces it by 70%. So,
Yes.
closed loop system, not so bad, but just straight up using water and yeah, that's not, we would never be able to sustain it.
No.
We'd have to build 5 more water plants. We would suck all the water out of the Savannah.
Well, Georgia might be doing it if they keep adding data centers over there.
They might. They
Turn it
might.
into a creek.
Savannah Creek.
Right after we built a brand new shiny bridge.
And this is just for y'all to look at when you go back and pick the ordinance apart. It's just the
General
basic information about data centers,
The water.
the power, how much power they use, how much water they use. And this is an environmental and energy study institute. It breaks it down as well. So if y'all wanna look at any of that, y'all, while you're picking through that, you are welcome to.
Well, we go back to the mass grading. This is from Anderson County. They include language about mass grading in their tree preservation ordinance. So I handed each of y'all a copy. If we could maybe study, if we could study this some more, and then I got I had more information I was to print off, but we lost electricity at my house today, so I couldn't print it off. But I'd like for us to look at this too, some of this language. I know y'all haven't had it, nobody's had a chance to really read it. But if we could read it, study it, and see what language is in there we could incorporate in for mass grading. This works with their tree preservation. So I was thinking it had language, that we could use to work with our tree preservation on mass grading. And I want to make another comment about the terraced grading. I think was mentioned one time. I think there's one or a few properties in Mount Vintage that have used this terrace grading, but the worst example I've seen was a Stanley Martin neighborhood in Graniteville. They did terrace grading, so it was, if y'all are familiar with North Augusta and the Pisgah, the roads around North Augusta High School and the hills, right? So that is a split level housing neighborhood because of the slopes, because the builders back then worked with the topography of the land. And so right now we've got developers that it's more expensive. Foundations are more expensive to build like that rather than just finding a way to flatten it out and pour a slab. Well, there's a road like that in Claiborne in Graniteville, and they did that terraced grading. But you'll have the house's foundation wall is right here, and the grading comes all the way up to the wall. There's not 3 inches from that concrete slab. There's not 3 inches where it drops down 15 feet for the next house. And they wouldn't even put up my buyer asked, would you put up a retaining wall and backfill it so I have more room? Nope, you can do that after you buy the house. But to me, we have a 15-inch deluge like we did before the hurricane. I don't know how you're not gonna have erosion when you don't
Have a
have,
house at the bottom of the hill.
yeah, when
Yeah,
you
we
have
wouldn't allow
a,
that in Edgefield.
yeah, when you have a
That's from a
concrete
building code standpoint.
pad and
Right.
then you can't even walk in the side yards
Yeah.
because they are so steep, and I just don't think that's a safe way, a good way for us to allow builders to
Yeah,
build.
But we don't
I'm not
do
gonna
that.
have any significant slope within 10 feet of a building. But I do see what you're saying. When it comes to mass grading, though, I'm gonna defer mostly to, David on this kind of stuff, simply because I'm not very familiar with things like tree preservation and mass grading. Not exactly my area of expertise.
I think you need to ask yourselves what your issue is with mass grading, because everyone has a different issue with it.
I think my issue is if we allow mass grading and changing of the topography, we create flooding in areas that used to not flood. And maybe you've got existing homes that aren't in a flood zone, but they are now because we have allowed a developer next to that neighborhood go in and do mass grading and change the topography.
So you're removing the A-horizon soils, you have all
Right.
subsoils is compacted.
Mhm.
Even
Even
if it's sodded, it runs off faster.
right,
Yeah.
right, and so it creates flooding where there wasn't flooding before. And again, as far as preserving the naturalness of, especially Edgefield County, we're hilly, right? We're the foothills of the foothills.
Yeah, well, it depends on which side of the
You
county you're on. Johnston, flat, it's all the way across the horizon. North
Yeah.
side, west side, almost mountain.
Yeah, I mean, Woodlawn's looks like mountains, you're in the foothills of the
flat
mountains on
trees.
Woodlawn. So I think what I'm looking for is developers to respect the topography and the lay of the land and not try to just completely flatten it out because it's cheaper to build on it.
Right.
But let's respect our natural topography and not create problems for somebody else, for a neighboring parcel, because they've gone in and they've done mass grading and changed the topography and I know even with my house, our room addition, when we dug down a little bit more, so my husband could have his basement, we have water seeping.
Right.
Water seeps out of the ground. And we had to do things to mitigate that, for the room, so.
Well, I think
You know.
that's one of the big objections. The other one is just the aesthetics of it, the uniformity of low-grade terrace with the same home over and over and over again and again and again, and every bit of vegetation is gone. If the tree preservation ordinance goes through as is, then y'all will have struck a pretty large blow to mass grading, because it would be almost cost prohibitive for a developer to reinstate 30% vegetation to get the density that they would need to. So you will have struck a blow for overall subdivision mass grading. But it is true that within the developed area, there may be areas that are graded for homes on slabs. That is how developers want to build. And I don't think the tree ordinance would stop that. It would stop large scale cut and fill across an entire property. So if you want to stop that, then you do need to add mass grading language.
What
Right.
constitutes mass? The mass?
It's just whole scale stripping and grading of the land, cut and fill. You cut the high points, you fill the low
Right.
points.
But,
And
You pan it until it's flat.
right, and not necessarily flat across the whole property, but you have flat areas,
right,
right? And to some extent, that's good. If you have an old eroded ravine, then stormwater runs slower over flat land. So you want to grade that area. right? It slows it down. It's good for the environment. In terms of storm flow, where velocity picks up, the steeper the slope. But the way it's been done a lot in North Augusta is every inch of topsoil is gone. You've done construction on these lots, you've built the house, you have compacted B horizon soil with not a bit of nutrients in it, no drainage. And then you roll sod on it, and typically they smooth the sod with an asphalt roller, which it makes no
You know,
sense.
Let's help it die fast.
I know.
And you see water sheeting out from underneath
Yes, the
the
sod.
side. So, I actually like some of the language in the handout you gave, and there are 2 points here. It says land disturbing activity of an area greater than 20 acres at any given time being mass graded, or the practice of clearing and grading more than 15 lots concurrently. I think language like that could be played with a little bit, and you could add language about a requirement for topsoil preservation, where if there's a section, if you want to grade a spot for 6 homes, right, then you strip the topsoil, you preserve it,
Right.
you grade it, and you build the homes and you replace the topsoil prior to landscaping and
Mhm.
things of that nature. So I think you could play with language like that. I don't think removing a developer's ability to build homes on slab foundations. I'm an environmental person. I like homes on crawl spaces. I like trees in every yard, and but there's also the cost of home ownership for people, and being able to build homes at an affordable price for especially, new families. And I mean, you have to consider that in this, but I can tell you, and again, this is y'all show here. I'm not on the planning commission, but y'all just struck a significant blow to large-scale subdivision mass grading like you see in areas of North Augusta if the tree preservation ordinance goes through. Because that buffer doesn't come close to the 30%. There are a lot more trees that have to be present within that subdivision. But you could embed some language to limit the areas of mass grading within the development if you wanted to. That's not a bad idea. I don't think 2 separate ordinances are needed. I think you could deal with it in one, really. I think they get in the way of each other, honestly.
Yeah, that's what, I mean, what little bit I was able to look through this, I felt like that they had incorporated it in with their tree preservation
Right.
ordinance pretty well.
And I tried to,
Just to hit areas that the tree preservation alone won't cover.
when I was a stormwater manager in North Augusta, and I pushed a mass grading ordinance there that embedded a tree preservation section, sort of the opposite of what you're trying to do here. And the planning commission at the time shot me down on that. They're a little less environmentally friendly than y'all are.
Well, Edgefield County is prettier than Aiken County anyway.
It is.
really is.
I would agree. I live here, but
You get over to the Graniteville,
yeah.
You got Scrub Oaks and
I
Sand.
agree. But
You
I
get over to
I'm just.
Granville now, you got Horton Homes, that's all you got.
yeah.
But I can
mean,
just tell you, I really got into the weeds in this stuff about 12, 15
One
years
right after
ago.
the other.
And
Oceans of houses.
And what you have sent to council already is far and above what they have in North Augusta. Yeah, they have some strict regulations in terms of what shrubs you can plant in front of your house. And they have street trees, which are next to worthless environmentally, and they damage infrastructure.
Yeah, they're having to take down all those cypress trees down in
That's right, that's
Hammond's
right. They
Ferry. I'm
planted-
like, why would anybody put a tree that grows that large next to a sidewalk and buildings? I don't,
There is a
why
way to
didn't they go with
success,
ornamental trees?
there is a way to successfully do street trees and parking lot trees, et cetera, The problem is they don't ever wanna give more than 4 feet or 6 feet.
Well, there is a way.
You need to give, I mean, however big your canopy on that tree is gonna be, that's where your roots are gonna expand as well. So, you know, you can't just
Well,
say,
those
I'm gonna give it a
cypress
4
trees,
foot and,
I reviewed the plans when they proposed those cypress trees. I was on staff then, and I said they needed 2 more foot in the landscape planning median, and they needed tree root barrier. And the city caved on both of those requests.
They all go.
Staff knew what, you know, I tried to listen to staff, that didn't happen then, and there, so. Yes, it could have been stopped, so they spent tens of thousands of dollars to remove trees that had roots in
I'm just
people's
saying, you
yards.
can't plant a tree that has, that, you know, their roots go 8 feet out and then you give it 4 feet to sit in.
No,
Of course, it's gonna tear everything up.
and we don't wanna do that, we don't wanna
No.
get,
I don't even wanna get into it. And I don't wanna be responsible for the trees either.
you know,
That's another thing with like North Augusta, they basically adopt those trees at
they
some
do,
point.
they take them.
And then now the taxpayer's responsible for it. I don't want that.
Every tree they have to replace comes from select trees, and it costs the taxpayers in North Augusta $600, and then the guy waters it twice a week.
Oh, my gosh.
So those trees, they drink water now, you know.
They do,
They drink water.
they do.
They drink water.
So,
You know,
no,
basically.
we don't wanna do that, and we took the best of what they had, and they do have some good language there. We took the best of what Clemson had and Forestry Commission. And, April found some really incredible language in here that's very protective. So I think y'all are moving in the right direction. Yes, if you wanna embed some mass grading language in there, that would be okay. We can't kill affordable housing. That wouldn't be fair to home buyers. But I think the objection I get when I get calls, and it may be different than what y'all get, it's, I'm driving by the subdivision, it looks horrible, there's not a stick of vegetation out there. You know, it's the same model house over and over again. And in our talks, I know you have a 25-foot buffer around the sides and the back. On the main road frontage, you have a 50-foot buffer. So there will be a 50-foot wooded buffer with large trees, medium trees, small trees, and shrubs protecting the view. So yes, you'll see houses, but you won't see what you see in some of our subdivisions now, and that's a big deal.
I think so, not only that, I mean, trees are good for cleaning the air and shade and cooling the earth and noise, I
Road
mean,
noise.
It look hard.
and aesthetically more pleasing.
And by planting natives, you're putting in mass trees for wildlife, so you got wildlife corridors and everything else.
Cause see, in my picture, even my backyard need a buffer. You know, that's my picture of it. You know, I'm just,
I personally think that.
you know, like when I go down to Chapin and all that and see, you know, why I get sick. I got something that's like a killing. Why you wanna buy something in this there? And you just see houses.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know, it just, cause for example, when you disturb the natural, it's never the same anymore.
right.
I mean, I'm from old school, just like, you know, all this steel and stuff you gotta put in concrete. Back in the day, we didn't have to do that because we didn't disturb the natural.
Yeah.
When we dug foundation with picking shovels, like if I built one for myself now, do it, pick and shovel, and do not disturb it, it'll stay. You know, a mobile home, how they sit in it, it'll stay because you don't disturb it. I don't care how much you compact it, your grades or what. Now, for example, how many ever go out to Savannah Lake? Anybody ever go out there?
I've got a house listed out
You
there.
got a house down there?
Mm-hmm.
That's, see, they left the natural. And everybody got good buffer out there. You just don't go cut trees. That MoDOT show, you just don't go cut trees. And I go down there, and it just, you know, you build on whatever you got. And you got, you know, and that's the way it should, when you gotta do it. Sometimes you can't do that. But we got a lot of places, you gotta heal the area, just let it stay healed and build it.
Yeah, that's what,
That's
yeah,
what you should do, right?
yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
think,
I mean,
we need to
when you
respect.
flower,
the-
look at the ad, it looks good.
Mhm.
Flower in a plane, but when you go there, you'll see nothing but New York City. And that awful. I'm
I think,
serious.
yeah. I mean, that's
Look
what,
at a satellite view of New York City.
that's what I think, we need to respect our natural habitat and build within our natural
Exactly what
habitat
you need to do.
and not change it so much where we're negatively affecting everything around it and other parcels around it. And I'm seeing that too much with these new subdivisions, some of these new subdivisions.
Go in the yard gotta, I go somehow so deep, you don't get them up, but it's natural, it looks good, it works, the water goes off. And a slab, oh, boy, I hate slabs. I did a many of them, I hate them. I hate them.
Yeah.
They too low to start with. I had one contractor, I had to quit him because he wouldn't build them up high enough. When you got a slab, you 6 inches, you get a big rain, it coming down, okay. And look at it. I've been in this all my life, so I guess.
Well, Fab, now they're, but for those slabs, like people don't have side yards because they grade them like this.
I know, I said, no.
And you can't, you know, and I had somebody buy a house and the contractor, they mounded the backyard so it would drain. So it was like a baseball mound in the backyard. Well, when they looked at the house under construction, the backyard was flat, and they're like, oh, we can fit the trampoline over there and the playset over there. Now they can't, because it's like a baseball mound in the backyard, and they can't get equipment back there to flatten it back out, because the side yard's like this,
Yeah.
you know, and the houses are 20 feet apart. They're not, you know, I understand housing affordability, but they're also taking a lot away from what it means to own your own house and have your own property. Because now you can't modify it really the way you want to.
Well, we
I'm
can't
just
control
trying to
house
hit a
prices.
balance.
No.
No, we can't.
We cannot.
And the day of a house for less than $250,000 is just about done.
Well, you can thank,
You can buy a tiny house for less than
you can thank the
$250,000.
Fed for printing useless money is why we're seeing all this inflation. People think it's not corporate greed.
I don't think so.
It's bad federal monetary policy
I
that's
know it's
done.
not.
I don't think,
Okay, yes, ma'am, you win.
I don't.
There you go,
Anything-
Fab.
What, do you think it's gonna
Right.
come, you think it's gonna get cheaper again?
No, we talking
But
about
no,
something.
no, you know it's not gonna get cheaper. Cause, I mean, the country gonna collapse anyway, so you don't have to worry about it. I'm
Lord.
serious. I mean, you might well take real.
You got a little bit of a doomsdayist on that one.
Yeah.
You went all the way to no more US.
And that's what we're coming to, no. I've been all over, all South, I've followed all this.
What language you think we gotta learn?
Common sense. Okay, adjourn. Motion, all in favor of adjourning. Seriously, we, you know, I feel for the young people.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have a future.